we're gonna pretend you don't see my daughter's messy writing over here on my dry erase board. Anyway, I got my coffee with an appropriate mug. We're about to talk about why in a second. And I got my water. I've become a drink goblin. Okay, let's do this. Now, before we start this video, I need to make a disclaimer. I am not affiliated with any sort of organized crime. I don't condone the acts of organized crime. And to the FBI agent assigned to all my work searches, all of this was for a work of fiction. Okay, now back to normalcy. Hi, I'm Anne. I'm an independent romance author. I have my novel out, Not Without You. The story is about a young woman who is the daughter of a Chinese triad leader and the romance between her and her private bodyguard assigned to her. Like, it's spicy, there's a little bit of mystery in it, and a little happy ending afterwards. Now, if you're interested, it is available on Kindle Unlimited and Kindle ebook reader. And if you want the paperback version, it's available on Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Walmart.com, Bookshop.org, and a couple of other online book retailers. And then also there's a couple of brick and mortar sites and also some pop-ups and some mobile bookstores that's available at, and I'll get into that later. So today we're going to talk about how I set up my e-commerce site. Just kidding. I haven't set that up. Still, it's already March. And I still have not set up that thing. I should have set it up in November, let's be honest. But hear me out, and this is the reason why I haven't started it up yet. And it's a good problem. Kind of. Yeah, I say it's a good problem. So what happened was I actually ordered like a case and a half, and I had like a case and a half worth of books on the shelf, but then I started getting responses from people. So what happened was, like about a month ago, I started doing this thing where I started contacting bookstores, mostly indie romance bookshops that I wanted my novel to be part of, and I started getting emails back. Now I already have a relationship with the people at the New Romantics out in Orlando, Florida. So I drop off some books there. And then I got a response from the M&B's Bookish Boutique Spice Cabinet, which, by the way, is such a cute mobile bookstore name. The Spice Cabinet? Come on. Anyway, so I got a response from them and they wanted some books. And then also the store Romance-Landia in Centreville, Maryland. They also wanted some books as well. So I sent all those out. And then there are some other books that also went to the West Coast. I'm not going to say exactly which stores yet, just because they haven't officially got the books. And I want the novels to be on the catalog before I mention where they're at. All in all, what ended up happening is now I'm depleted down to 2 books. So I can't exactly open up an e-commerce store with only 2 books. That's kind of insane. So I ended up having to order 2 more cases. So I did that this morning. And yeah. So just to reiterate, if you're on the East Coast, M&B's Bookish Boutique, it is a online store, but they're also starting their mobile book. I called it bookmobile because that's what I saw when I was a kid. They're starting their bookmobile up in the Connecticut area, and then Romance-Landia bookstore in Centreville, Maryland, and then also the New Romantics in Orlando, Florida. They all either have it on their online catalog or they will have it like in stock. So if you're in those areas and you're interested, just ask for it. And then again, I do have some more books and they're like out getting shipped right now. I shipped a bunch out yesterday and then some more other, like I think more earlier last week or later last week. So once they're on their online catalog, then I will announce it. I will announce it first on social media, like my Instagram. So if you're not following me on Instagram, you can follow me at Anne Karine Quinn. I'm also there on Threads with my unhinged thoughts, and then also TikTok. And then also some here on YouTube. But another reason why I haven't been able to start my e-commerce is that there's this thing, like I'm trying to incorporate media mail rates into my e-commerce bookstore. So Media mail is essentially a cheaper version to ship books rather than standard mail. Like, for example, when I was shipping out books to one of the stores, because it's based on weight only, it would have cost with standard mail like $24 or something. But because it's media mail, which is specifically for CDs and books only, or education pamphlets, I only paid like $9. So I want to give the cheapest rate to the consumer. However, I can't get it to work on my website for some reason. So until then, I don't know, I have to figure something else out. Anyway, the real topic today is, again, I'm moving the calendar around, and today we're going to talk about research stuff, like setting, research, inspiration, how that all came about for Hiko Story. So let's start with inspiration and, in fact, the timeline. So, Not Without You, again, this is the first book in the duology. The one I'm talking about now is the second book in the duology, so it's going to be finished once the book I'm talking about right now comes out, Hiko Story. I'll call it the Hiko Story for now because I haven't revealed the title yet. Not Without You, I finished writing it New Year's Eve in 2023. So December 31st, 2023. So I finished that. But as for Hiko Story, I didn't start writing it down until like March 2024. So, pretty much for 2 months, I forced myself not to like write a story, but I still allowed myself to like brainstorm and write notes down in case I forgot anything. So it's kind of funny that I'm thinking about it. I'm filming this right now on March 4th, 2025. So it's been roughly a year since I started Hiko Story, which is wild when I think about it. So Hiko and Nana are the main characters in this next novel that I'm about to release, and they first meet in chapter 27, I think, of Not Without You in the first book. And it was just so much fun writing Nana, and I didn't really develop her in the beginning because she was essentially just a side character, because truth of the matter is, Not Without You was supposed to be a standalone story. Like, it was supposed to just like be on its own, a standalone, that's it. Like, I just was gonna move on to the next story, whatever that was. I was actually thinking of going in my back catalog of like some old stories I have in a notebook, and I never actually printed out, but like, okay, here we are. But what ended up happening was that when I started writing Hiko and Nana together, it was just so much fun. It was so much fun to write them together as a couple, and I decided, is this something I can actually, like, can I do a duology? Can I do this as a second story? And they kind of just lend themselves to be written in a way. It was almost like they were screaming at me. They're just like, our story needs to be heard. So that's what I did, essentially. I started writing notes down while I was on vacation, and I'll get into that in a minute. While I was on vacay, I was like writing notes down, and then I was just going through it more, and then I was thinking like, oh my god, I think I'll be able to do a story. Because what happened was, I got an idea, like I got a scene in my head. I saw Hiko and Nana doing something, and I wrote it down as notes, and I wrote it down as notes again, and then there was more notes coming in, and then I had more brainstorming ideas, and I kept going in, and then by the time March hit, I was like, okay, let me just try to write a scene of them together. So I wrote like a full scene, which you'll see in what happens in chapter 11 of Hiko Story. That whole chapter was basically the first scene I wrote of them together. And then after a while, then I had another scene, which was chapter 2, I think. And then another scene, then another scene. And then like I think I had about 5 scenes of them together when I was like, oh yeah, okay, I'm gonna do this story. So I wrote it. I started technically in March, brainstormed January, but then I officially finished the first draft in September, I think, like the very first draft. And then I went through developmental edits, and then I went through an editor. Well, actually, it's going through an editor right now. She should be finished soon. But as for inspiration, not only just Nana and Hiko themselves were the inspiration to write this novel, but also a lot of like other like Asian media and other Asian stories that I had been watching and absorbing for the past past like year or two. Very similar to the ones that I had from Not Without You. There was Tokyo Vice, starring, and I have my notes here, so that's why I'm looking off to the side, guys. Tokyo Vice, starring Ansel Elgort and Ken Watanabe. Ansel Elgort you'll probably have seen in The Fault in Our Stars and Divergent and West Side Story. Ken Watanabe, big, huge actor. You've probably seen The Last Samurai, Memoirs of a Geisha, and Inception. The story is about a journalist who arrives in Japan in like the late 1990s. Like we're talking about like 1999, and then he stays for like about a decade or something in the through the early 2000s. He just investigates the happenings of the Yakuza. And then of course the show Shogun, starring Hiroyuki Sanada. You've seen him in John Wick and Last Samurai. And then also Cosmos Jarvis. Harvest? No. Jarvis? Oh, and also Anna Sawai. It's about an English sailor who gets shipwrecked off the coast of Japan, and he gets thrown into this like political feudal war, essentially. And also a little bit of the show Warrior, starring Andrew Koji. He is a man who shows up in like 1850 San Francisco, and he's trying to find his sister. It basically covers a lot of stuff that happens with the beginnings of like the power dynamics against the different tongs or the different triad systems out in San Francisco and the power struggles between them, and also the other immigrant struggles that happened in San Francisco. I knocked on the mic. Sorry. Okay. So all those together, all those three great shows, which by the way, 2 of them were canceled, unfortunately, but they had really great writing. So I do suggest if you can get your hands on them. I think they're either on Netflix or like Max or whatever. Not that this is sponsored, but like if you have a chance to watch these shows, they are great. If you're into like the power dynamic struggles and political intrigue, highly recommend. But next we're going to go into setting. Now the setting of the story, it pretty much takes place in the same world as Not Without You. LA, essentially Southern California. We don't go as much into different places in Southern California. In the first book we were mostly in Calabasas, and Calabasas, if you know where that is, it's kind of very north LA into like the hills. We're talking about like I think that's where the Kardashians live. I don't know. Like I don't watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians. I don't keep up with them. So a lot of the LA settings are kind of the same though. Like however, for Hiko and Nana, I decided to move them to Malibu. Malibu is a coastal city. If you've ever watched the Iron Man movies, that's where Tony Stark lives, like that area. And also took place in other parts of LA, like Beverly Hills, and then also the financial district in downtown. That's where the Zhao Group financial building is. And a lot of the LA stuff I didn't really have to research too much. I am from California. I grew up in Northern California, but like a lot of my like adult life essentially I basically spent a lot of time in Southern California. So different parts of LA, different parts of Southern California and San Diego. So I didn't need to do too much research on that. And then also anything I did need, I would ask my sisters, since they live in those areas still. But one place that I had like accidental research, if that's what you want to call it, or I guess you can kind of call it that, is in Kyoto. So a couple of chapters, not a lot, but only like maybe 3 or 4 chapters take place in Kyoto, Japan. It was actually an accident in a way. So my husband and I, we usually try to take a trip once a year or once every 2 years on like an international thing. We have been to Tokyo before in 2018. We went to London a few years ago. We went to Paris almost a decade ago. Oh my god, it is a decade ago. But one of the things that he really wanted to see in Tokyo that he really get to was like the ancient like side of things. in a way. And then I thought about it and I was like, no, you know what? I actually do want to see like the ancient capital, because that's what Kyoto is. It was like the old capital before it got moved to what is now Tokyo. So I decided to book us a trip there, and we had such a good time. We went to a lot of the shrines there. We walked around. We just kind of enjoyed the ambiance and the quiet of that Kyoto had to offer. And it's almost the city itself, when you go to those shrines and you go to like when you hike Mount Inari, it's almost spiritual in a way. I highly recommend if you can have a chance to go to Japan to visit as a tourist, because like, and don't worry about the language barrier. Tokyo right now, it is very like a world capital. It's very metropolitan. I do have enough passing Japanese that I can kind of get away with like things like asking for certain food or asking for stuff like at a store, but there is a lot of English assistance, and now with certain apps, they allow you to like translate what you're trying to say, and it'll respond in Japanese, and it'll be just so easy to understand. Like the language barrier is so much easier now to break through than it was when I first started traveling to Japan back in 2002. God, I'm old. So anyway, and Kyoto, I say as a traveler, there is a lot more like, it's so much quieter. It is a cultural capital, I feel, in a way. So if you have a chance to go over there, definitely try. And then also while we were there, we went to Osaka, which is about an hour away, and we got to go to the Universal Studios there. If you actually are curious to see how my trip to Kyoto went, I actually have another channel. It's strictly for travel and like hotels and things like that. And I have like a little montage, like a little video of like how my trips to Kyoto was like, and then how my hotel over there was like. I'm also gonna I need to work on this. I have an Osaka centered video, but I had a software issue. I thought my stuff was corrupted. It's fine, but I'll eventually put that up in a couple months. So if you're curious on how Kyoto looked like and things like that, go ahead. Like, I think it's gonna be here, or it's gonna be here. I'm not sure. I've been on YouTube for at least like 3 or 4 years now, and I still can't figure out. It's fine. And if I can't link them up here, then I'll put it in the description box below. Now we're getting into the research part, and this specifically again pertains to the disclaimer that I had in the beginning of this video. Part of the research was accidental research, me being in Kyoto. You know, I had a great time. I was staying in the historic area and the historic district side, which was great because when I realized that, okay, I'm going to write a scene or a couple scenes that take place in Kyoto, for them to stay in the ancient side or the historic side made a lot of sense. That's actually where a lot of the geishas were. So in considering that Nana had a cousin, Ayame, who you met previously in another video that I talked about the characters and stuff, because she was a geisha and she lived in the historic quarters, which makes sense because that's where they mostly operate. That's where a lot of the tea houses are, where they dance and they like sing songs and things like that and perform. It made sense to talk about that area. So really there are huge pockets of Kyoto where it still looks like it's almost been untouched. Like it looks like this building is 100% made out of wood and no nails, and it was probably made like, in the 1800s or 1700s, before any sort of Western influence showed up. So I had to go into research about that. I had to research a lot of like how the geishas were, what was their history, how did they come about, what were their what was their training like, things like that. I had to because there are different things, but there are different levels, at least in Kyoto. There are different levels for geishas. There's the Maiko, which are like the younger ones, almost like think of like an apprentice, like a Padawan essentially. Like if we're gonna do a Star Wars reference here, like the Padawans, the ones who are still learning, and then there are the Geikos, which are like the much more senior, older ones. We're thinking kind of like in the early 20s. They've already learned everything that they need to know from like Maiko status, and then now they're at Geiko status. So they are the seasoned veterans essentially of when it comes to dancing and instruments and all the disciplines that they need to know. And a lot of the geisha culture is kind of mysterious. And then the other stuff that I had to research was a lot more of the organized crime elements of the story, because I don't discuss it a lot in Not Without You, because the character Himeko, she is very much against what her dad does, and since he is he is a triad leader, so she always tries to self-remove herself, and so it's kind of reflected in that I don't really mention much of it, but this I go a lot more into it. Like I had to do a lot of research on the ways that the triad system works, like what their origins were started from China and how they moved over here, and then also the Yakuza, which are actually pretty similar in terms of like what they did in terms of how they operated, like where the Yakuza started, how did they come into not just the US, but like how both the triads and the Yakuza kind of went all over the world, because they are from different countries and they are from different systems, and a lot of them are pretty similar in terms of arms dealing, money laundering, like all that, a lot of those illegal operations, but then over time it has morphed, because a lot of these families, they're very like a patriarchal tier system. There's like the top, who is like the father essentially of the gangs, so who's like the father or the top, and then for example in the triads, the translation for the head of the organization is known as like dragon, and then the head who is like in charge of, and for the Yakuzas, is known as like father figure or father or something. And then like there is like sub leaders, and then there's another set of like admin people, and then there's like the soldiers. Now a lot of the countries have been trying to basically squash down these like illegal crime organizations, and as a result, a lot of other kind of smaller families have tried to, or a lot of smaller groups essentially have tried to make money however way they can. So things like other sorts of trafficking and things like that have come into play. There's a lot of research for me when I came to like the FBI webpage of what they considered, like what these organized crime families are and how to be mindful of them and all this other stuff. But then there's also like rituals involved, and that's mostly what my research was, because a lot of these families, or at least I'd had it with my characters, because again, this is a work of fiction. These aren't real people. It's just for fiction. The characters come from ancient families, because there is a set of, in reality, there are older families that have existed like since like the 1800s, and then there's like the newer sets that kind of started trickling into society. So I wanted Hiko and Nana's families to be like part of the ancient families from their respective countries. So honestly, my sources for a lot of the triad Yakuza stuff was YouTube. A lot of stuff on YouTube, a lot of documentaries on YouTube essentially, and then also just some other reading. Obviously Wikipedia kind of was at least a start, because like with Wikipedia I could see like the links on the bottom of the page of like where they got the articles from, so then I was able to like go from there. So I'm going to end the video here. I do have a couple more topics to do, and we'll do like once a month. The next one after this will probably be either e-commerce, who the heck knows, just love surprises, and also the cover reveal and like the behind the scenes of like what we did in order to like brainstorm to get the cover together. And then by then I'll probably tell you guys what the story is called. And then also I am slated to go to a book signing in January. I won't tell you what yet though, because they haven't announced it officially that I'm on their roster. So again, I have to wait on that. But it is going to be in early 2026. So there is going to be a video about that, just like getting ready and like what I'm planning to do for that. And then also my marketing plan for Hiko Story, any other last minute things. And if there's any other topics you guys want to know about, let me know. So go ahead, leave a comment and tell me what you thought was interesting about this video. Like, was it the research on the organized crime families? Was it the way that Hiko and Nana just decided to upend my entire life and decided like, no, we need to have a second book? Or yeah, let me know. Anyway, see you later. Bye.